Afternoon to everyone. Thank you very much for tapping and getting us 1K likes on TikTok. But please don't stop. We need to keep tapping and sharing the live so that we can get on the FYP. If you are on TikTok, please click on the heart icon above the picture of my picture. Let me put it that way. All right, just click on that and then join the team. If you're already a member of the team, please drop a heart, drop a gift. Let's try to push the live to the FYP. All right, thank you very much for being here. Yoba, greetings, ma'am. Thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you here. Just to be sure, we are good on the other platforms. We're streaming on YouTube and Facebook as well as TikTok. All right, just give us a couple of seconds to get that sorted so that we're sure. We could help the noise is not so much. It's going to be a very quick session, so I'm very sure we're going to have a great time. Okay. Just want to check YouTube to be sure we're good, and then we can get started. All right, so please, Mr. Kim, is that Mr.? Well, I can't see the person, but I see the name Akimbami Bonje. Thank you very much, Eshio. All right. A video trended a while back, and then we had a session on that. On that video, and it was a video of Chimamanda saying certain things, and we had a response to her claims. So that's what we're going to be listening to today. Okay, looks like we're good on YouTube. Please share the live, like the live before we even get into the session itself. If you're on YouTube, kindly click on your screen and like the live. Thank you very much. Had a response to. All right. So like we usually do, I'm going to read the description and then we'll get into the video itself. Okay. By the way, like we always do, Tuesdays and Thursdays we have shorter sessions, and we play recordings from our YouTube channel. That's Pusui Oris on YouTube. So please check out the channel and also subscribe. So we're going to be listening. The title you find there is story. All right, let's get into it now. Well, please don't stop our tapping, especially on TikTok. And if you're on YouTube or Facebook, please share the live. Someone on YouTube is saying, nice to see you. Nice to see you too, Sonny Leshi. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you for liking the live, everyone on YouTube. I really appreciate that. All right, so let's read the description and then we'll listen to audio, I should call it. Yeah, although it's a video on YouTube. Okay, so again, it's called Dear Chimamanda, do you remember the danger of a single story? But today we're calling it the danger of Chimamanda's single story. When Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie admitted that her people no longer feel safe enough to celebrate cultural events in their homeland, she was telling the truth. But she didn't say from the beginning. When Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie admitted that her people no longer feel safe enough to celebrate cultural events in their homeland, she was telling the truth. But what she didn't say, and what many won't confront, is why that's the case. How did the southeastern region become so unsafe that its own people flee to celebrate elsewhere? The answer is in decades of propaganda, victimhood narratives, and misdirected blame. When people are raised on the myth that the Civil War was about religion or oil and are taught to hate Nigeria instead of holding their leaders accountable, manipulation replaces strategic thinking, grievance becomes identity. Now a new generation is rising, misled by false history and driven by a desire to avenge imagined wrongs. But in trying to fix the past, they are wrecking the present. It's time to stop the spin and start telling the truth. So that's the description on the video. But I want to say something before we get into it. This is a Nigerian story, not an ethnic story. It just so happens that one particular ethnicity is louder about this particular story. So let no one come here disturbing, like the one I just muted right now, telling us that, oh, focus on one thing. This is what we want to focus on. If you have something that you want to focus on, you can, get started on your own channel and say whatever you want to say there. God bless you. All right, so this is the danger of Chimamanda's single story. Enjoy, and please power tap, share the live as you listen. Thank you very much. I read earlier. I read earlier about the gentleman in Enugu that did something fantastically great. Like, it's fantastic. He saw something not working. He spoke to the Waste Management Authority in Enugu and they fixed it. I was here. I said it earlier. That's something to learn from. Instead of complaining, he did something. Everybody should just do that thing where they are from. Just do it. Let me play you something from Ngozi Adichie.
It paints all of us in a very, very bad light, and for all kinds of reasons. And so it worries me very much. It worries me very much. Igbo land has changed. People now have their wine carriers in Lagos. Friends, because they're terrified of coming back. And for me, it's a thing of not just sadness, but shame. Igbo land, and this is obviously a region, not just a region I love, but a region I have studied. Right? I've been interested, so I've read a lot about our history, and this is not who we are. Right? This is not who we are. This kind of senseless disregard for human life. So I do worry that it will get worse, yes.
What do you think are the triggers for all the atrocious things we're seeing around us?
Honestly, I've thought about this very often, and people will say life is hard, but life has been hard for many years, and Igbo people did not do this kind of thing. I think that there is a lot that maybe one can blame political activity for. I think that if you incite certain things politically, in some ways you can open a box and something sort of leaps out that you can't put back in the box. Right? But I don't think that I know for sure. It's something that has really puzzled me, in addition.
I want to play you one of the reasons this has happened. Take a listen to this. It's the same person now. Take a listen.
And so suddenly in the north, which is mostly Muslim, you had happened was Igbo people that was a humanitarian disaster. And I think it shaped so much in the world.
Guys, if you're looking for, with all due respect, I'm not trying to trivialize, what people went through, because, people went through stuff and it was terrible. But if you're trying to understand why that second interview happened, that first interview I played, if you want to understand why that's happening, it's because of this second interview. Propaganda, and you grew up regurgitating the same, it will be very easy for you to raise people who may not have whatever it is that cautions you, or who are exposed to that same propaganda, but without that thing that inhibits you from doing certain things. They don't have such inhibition, so they can do anything they want to do. Therefore, if you don't understand that there's a direct correlation between what people are going through right now with the things that she said about the war, then you really are not ready to look at the problems of the Southeast. Not today, but it's not going to, it doesn't even, this is the first time I'm listening to the entire thing. I've never listened to more than 4 seconds of that clip. The moment she started mentioning Muslim Christians, I was out. And I think it was more than 4 seconds. When she started mentioning Muslim Christians oil, I was out. The oil, I didn't hear her say it. People just typed it in the comment section. The Muslim Christian, I heard it and I was like, really? if you teach young people these things, if you teach people this narrative, do you know it's going to be very easy for you to raise IPOB? And by the way, when they asked her for what's the reason for what's happening right now, she just like Obi, nobody says anything wrong with IPOB. They will tell you, oh, it's because the political leader are not doing the right thing. See, whatever you want to do in your region is fine. I'm just saying that if you are celebrating your cultural festival outside your ancestral space, don't you see that as a problem? And how do you solve it if you're not even going to acknowledge the fact that you're literally feeding off of this narrative of they did this to us, they did that to us, they did it to us because we are Christians, because of the oil. Which oil? More than 50% of the oil in Nigeria at the time was in rivers and Bayelsa. That's where the oil was. About 30% was in Delta, was in the Midwest. The region was broken into three on the 27th of May 1967. Biafra was not declared until the 30th of May 1967, which means that the idea of even declaring Biafra was over Nigeria's territory, apart from the fact that it's declaring his own inside region. Have you ever asked yourself, just a simple question, have you ever asked yourself, how come there's never been agitation for an Igbo nation? Why do you need Biafra that bad or badly? Why are you talking about oil that you are not producing? And the idea that you were Christians, who were the first Christians? Who brought Christianity to the East? Was it not Yoruba people? Who was Yoruba people brought Christianity? It is what it is. 1857. And by the way, let me just quickly say something. It was before the Catholic mission, oh. Bishop Ajayi Crowther and his team of missionaries got to Onitsha in 1857. I have a book that he wrote in 1866. There's another one he wrote shortly after that. There's a preaching on the banks of River Niger. Fantastic stuff. But if you're saying that they're doing it because you are Christians, Abba, are the Yorubas not Christians? Are there no Christians in the north? The Middle Belters, are they not Christians? Yakubu Gowon was a Christian. Guess what? Read the book by Neil Graham Douglas. By the way, if it's not very big, it's small but powerful. You can get that book for free in the Telegram channel. It's a to the library. You'll be able to find that book. Neil Graham Douglas said, and I've said this here before, Ojukwu, when they were telling him about what he was doing, he said to them, Jack will not fight because he's a Christian. Those were Ojukwu's words. That Yakubu Gowon will not fight because he's a Christian. Okay, this is how people get in trouble. So Yakubu Gowon, who was fighting, was a Christian. How come he's not fighting you because you're a Christian? When you have this narrative, and you say it over and over again, you read it in books, you sell the books and make money, Abi? Okay. You make movies out of it. If you see me talking like this, sincerely, I have young people around me who are Igbos. And I'm not saying this because I want to say I have Igbo friends. No, I'm saying it because I cannot afford to have them become victims just because somebody said they were, because they are not. They are citizens of Nigeria, just like my children who are Yoruba. They have the same rights, but they have limits in Yoruba land, just like my children have limits in their own land. And that doesn't have to give them victim mindset. This propaganda, they hate us, everybody hates us. What do you think that thing does to people? You can blame Nnamdi Kanu and say things, but at the end of the day, it's really his fault. If you grow up being taught that thing, people hate you, everybody hates you, people hate you. And then you now look around, any small thing that is not available in your irresponsibility, they blame the other person for it. After a while, will you not go to the other person and say, they say you are my problem, therefore I'm going to deal with you? That's what's happening. And by the way, you don't have to, when you say it's not rocket science, it is not rocket science. the lies around Nigeria history is so bad. And by the way, if you hear me and people say things, why are you always talking about? If we're talking about the war, I can't talk about the Nigeria civil war without mentioning the Easterners. It's not because of hate. It's just because the more you read, and let me say the saddest part of this. I've read many books from the East, and I think may God forgive those older men, no? May God forgive them, because they died even with that narrative. They did not change the narrative, even though they knew it not to be the truth. You know how you get drunk on your own Kool-Aid. Never get high on your own supplies. That's what these guys that sell drugs in the US, all these drug pushers. That's what they say. You hear it in movies. Never get high on your own supply. Never get high on your own supply. Never get high on your own supply. The fix in Nigeria's issue is propaganda. Biggie Smalls. Yes, never get high on your own supplies, because once you do, you are done. Now is this: people have taken the fix, and let me tell you something. On one hand, it's difficult for me to blame the young Igbo people, because it's what they've been told. I have the books. That's why I said it's important to read books from different places, so that also, maybe that's why I'm also like some things I can't say, because I'm like, maybe it's not even your fault, you don't know, because you read the books and just find it is everywhere. The claim she mentioned when she said we don't know the number, but some people say it's 30,000. There's a reason. When it's communication, and she's good at it. When this woman, let me ask you a question. They asked Chimamanda. They didn't even ask her. She just said, a lot of people died. We don't know the killings, but some say 30,000. Then that's it. If you were to ask the interviewer how many people died, what number do you think she's going to tell you? Just this is an exercise. What number do you think she's going to tell you? That a lot of people died, we don't know, or will she tell you a number? If you know, if whatever your answer is, there's no right or wrong answers. Just type whatever you think is right. If you go and ask that woman that you are the one interviewing her, how many people died in the north? What will she say? She'll say 30 exactly. She will not mention that we don't know the number. You know why? Because when you speak like this, you are not. You know exactly what you are doing. I mean, we know these things. You know exactly what you're doing. So you throw that in because that's the narrative you want to get out. Because that's not the only number, by the way. The people suffer from the East, absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of people died. A lot of Igbos were killed. And it's a terrible episode in Nigeria's history. Terrible. Terrible. And this is why we don't want to have that kind of thing happen again. And that was not the war. This was just people getting angry after just saying we've had enough. They've just had enough. And they just went off in September of '66. This is just we've had enough. Oh. There was one precursor, not like a prelude or prologue in May. By August, they revved it up. By September, they just went all out. Like, we are tired. They've been taking it in since January. It took them 8 months to actually unleash. Guys, whatever the Northerners did, it was terrible. But that was a direct result of what they had been taking since January of 1966. They took it. They were insulted, they were dragged, they were maligned in their own land. The same thing that's happening right now. They were taunted. They were told that it's only Nzogu that can knock sense into them. They played the pictures of their heroes in their land. It's not different from what you are seeing on social media. Anything you are seeing right now, not be today. Just insulting people. Those people got angry. For the first 4 months, they didn't do anything until Decree 34 of May 24, 1966. That was when they first got angry and showed something and like, let's show you that we are not dumb. Then they calmed them. When they saw what the soldiers did by September, what happened in August was what the soldiers did. What happened in September was because of what the folks in the East did to Hausa people in the East. By the time September happened, nobody could stop them. I mean, that did never happen again in Nigeria's history. We have to understand how it happened. Number one, and I know that's not today's topic, but it's not today's topic, but I'm going to speak on it. May that never happen again in Nigeria's history. May we never have the kind of death. But let me explain to you the sequence of events. Because people jump to the end of the story as though that's where it started. January 15 was when the coup happened. By the way, and I've said it before, all leaders, political leaders from every part of Nigeria had somebody unalived except the East. Nothing happened in the East. The East was as quiet as anything else. But that's not even the point. You know, when that thing happened, everybody was happy, like, they breathed a sigh of relief. Until they discovered that nobody died in the East. Then they began to question it. But guess what? They didn't do anything. They were still watching. Then Easterners in the North began to taunt the people. We've read it here before. They did it for months. They did it in the civil service, in the offices, in secretariats. They did it in the motor parks. They did it in the markets. They did it in the residential areas. They did it everywhere. These things are recorded history. You find what I'm saying right now. You find it in the book by Shehu Shagari. It's called Back Unto Serve. You find it even in Azikiwe's own book on the Civil War, on the origins of the Civil War by Azikiwe. You will find it in The Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama. You find all these things there. Whatever people are doing right now, the parents did it, which is why I say, why do you want to repeat this bad thing? Like, the consequence is no good now. People now got angry when Iransi, they noticed that number one, it did not court martial the people. Number two, they were also hearing rumors that they were going to finish what they started in January. Number three, he now came up with Decree 34. Meanwhile, he was paying the salary of all these people that were in prison. He now came up with Unification Decree. People now got angry. That was in May. They settled it. In June, Ojukwu started talking about having his own nation. This is 66. Ojukwu's declaration of Biafra has nothing to do with the killings of, by the way, it was terrible what happened in the north. The killings of the Igbo was terrible, but that's not why Ojukwu declared Biafra. He declared Biafra, it discussed Biafra before that point. Check that book, you find it there. There are other books, by the way. If you also read Ojukwu's Rebellion and World Opinion by Nebo Graham Douglas, it's there. My Reminiscences by David Ejo. It will tell you how Ojukwu started planning in 64. I just feel sorry for people who had to die for that thing. It's his own ambition. It wasn't altruistic. It wasn't about collective good. Anyway, July 29 was when the counter coup happened. Abeokuta, Ibadan, Ikeja, Kaduna, they moved to other parts of the north. When that happened, folks in the east heard about it. In fact, folks from the north, Igbos from north, were also moving back home because, of course, they were seeing their own people dying, especially officers. A lot of officers died. A lot. They were going back home. They told their own people that story. What did they do with that story? Remember, the Northerners did what they did because of what the Easterners did in January. The Easterners heard about what they did in August. And guess what they did? They now unalived the Northerners in the East. People don't tell you that part of history. It's true. You find it in the book called Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green. You find it in the Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. These things are not made up. I'll also do another session on that stuff because the lies are too many. Hopefully somebody will be helped. That's what I'm trying to do. You now have people, unalive people in Onitsha, in Owerri, in Enugu, in Umuahia, Oboluafo, in Port Harcourt. People were being killed. Northerners were being killed. In their houses in some cases, on the streets, anywhere, in buses, on the trains. Bodies being dumped in Imo River. This happened. The news now got to Cotonou. Why? Because listen to the story. Broadcast it in French. The Kaduna guys got the signal, and now interpreted it in English and Hausa. The folks in Hausa now heard of the news of what was happening to their own people in the east. Before their own people from the east got back home, they began to kill Igbos. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were Christians. It had nothing to do with the fact that there was oil. It had to do with something deeper that started in January. And like I said, regardless, this does not justify what happened, but it's important to understand what happened rather than just go running on. Interestingly, she's the same person who gave a speech on the danger of a single story. When that now happened, everything was settled around October. Terrible episode in Jesus' name. October, they had settled it. They had report. The Eastern region published a document. They titled it Pogrom. That's the title of the document. In that document, the Eastern region government said between 7,000 and 8,000 people died in the north. That's what the government said. Where did I find what I'm saying right now? The book by, 1 second, I have to mute somebody. I don't have time for Iregbe. There's a book by John de St. John. It's called Nigeria Civil War. It's there. They said Eastern region published it, between 7,000 and 8,000 people died. Bad news. This was October 1966. January 4, 1967. Thanks for the gift. January 4, 1967. January 4 and January 5, they had a Aburi Accord. That was in Ghana. When they got there, Ojukwu said there were 10,000 people who died. His own government, 2 months prior, said between 7,000 and 8,000 people. Something 6,000 to 8,000. Ojukwu said it's 10,000 in January. For something where they don't finish for October last year. That terrible thing, may not happen again. Number went to 10,000 by January. By May of the same year, Ojukwu said the number was now 30,000. That number is what you will see in Achebe's book. There was a country. Is what you will see in Frederick Forsyth's book, The Biafran Story. That 30,000 number was a number that they started pushing everywhere. But guess what? That's not the end. That's the third figure. Remember the first one, 7,000 to 8,000. Second one, 10,000. Third one, 30,000. Then in 1969, Ojukwu did something called the Ahịara Declaration. Ahịara is a market. Ahịara Declaration. Ojukwu said there were 50,000 who died. Do you know how John de St. John described what he did? He called it an irresponsible number game. That was how he said he played an irresponsible number game by hyping the figures. 4 times. The same incident, 4 different numbers. That 30,000 that Ojukwu repeated before, because Ahịara was in 1969. So the lie don't pass. I mean, they don't repeat that 30,000 so much. That 50,000, they rarely talk about that 50,000 number. But that 30,000, they got stuck with that one. You find it in Achebe's book. You find it in Forsyth's book. Now you are listening to it being repeated by who? Chimamanda. When a child is growing up and he hears these things, do you think he asks, is it true or not? It doesn't. You are affirming to that child that is a second class. And let me say something with all due respect to folks from the East. Let me tell you something. There's nothing that makes anybody better than you in Nigeria. You are as Nigerian as anybody else. But guess what? There's nothing that makes you better than anybody in Nigeria as well. Every other person is as Nigerian as you, as anybody else. But guess what? There's nothing that makes you better than anybody in Nigeria as well. Every other person is as Nigerian as you. Everybody is just good. Just live your life. You are everywhere already. Nobody's pushing you. Just enjoy. Just succeed. Thrive. Do well. Everybody hates me. How can they hate you and still abhor you at the same time? You think it's because of the Constitution? The reason you are able to live in different parts of Nigeria is not the Constitution, no. It's because of the hosts. And the reason you will not be able to stay there is not going to be because of the Constitution. It will be because of the host. So why do we want to have that? And I'll say this, the truth is, those who lost, one day I will get into it. The last time we discussed the war, I didn't discuss it, but one day I will talk about it. Those who lost the war were too proud to admit they lost, to the point where they would rather lie than acknowledge the fact that they lost. And that's why I say, I think that although I understand the mindset of General Gowon, I think they should not have said no victor, no vanquished. It would have been better. You know why? Because you'll be angry, and then hopefully it will thaw like ice. It will thaw, and everybody will be okay. But once you say, oh, we're all together, the other person now has opportunity to now continue to lie. Now, young people now grow up with the lies. After a while, you have Biafra. By the way, the lying did not start with Biafra. It started before Biafra. I'm just saying that I'm just talking about the one that Chimamanda is talking about. So use that one. You talk about it. After a while, you have Masob. Talk about it. After a while, you have IPOP. Talk about it. After you have UGM. You have BGIE. Of course, IPOP will give you ESN. And you say you don't know how it happened. I'm just going to say that all of us, may God help all of us. Let's all be measured, and let's all, people died. There's something I'm trying not to say. People died because when lives are lost, you can't just talk. But the crazy part is that the people who died, a lot of them died because Nigeria messed up, but most of them died because the Igbo leaders messed up. Do you know how many people died for lack of eating, for starvation? And do you know the reason for that? I mean, people have used that as well. Oh, we're starving. Awolowo said, Achebe wrote it in his book. A young person reads that book and hates Awo for no reason. Because Achebe wrote it. And when you hear people talk about what Awo said, they never quote him right, never quote him correctly, never. Why? One thing, I'm going to move on from this. You're trying to force blame on the Igbo, even though you were not part of those who lost a family. I don't think you understand. This is not me blaming Igbo. You don't get it. This is not me hating Igbo. If you understand the war, if you really understand the war, you will sound like me, unless you are totally dumb. Or you are too angry to be calm. Either of those two. If you are too angry to be calm, you curse people out. If you are totally dumb, you still keep thinking you are the victim. Or you think that anybody who has written is hating on you. I don't hate you. I am not against you. I'm not looking down on you. I'm not blaming you. In actual fact, your leadership should be blamed. But guess what? So, Azikiwe got in something. Azikiwe, I'm not blaming Igbo. Stay with me. Leadership should be blamed. But guess what? Something happened in 1948, and since then, the Igbos have been in that cycle. You know what happened? Azikiwe got in something. Azikiwe, I'm not blaming Igbo. Stay with me. HNO Vashop, you will get it. Azikiwe did something. Something about it. Everything started in 47, actually. They went to London, they got back, they asked Azikiwe for money, and then Azikiwe now said, oh, Azikiwe turned it around. The folks, the folks who already had issues with him, based on what he done the do since, on top of their own matter, they took it up. They were now going back and forth in newspapers, right? Now got to a point, it happened for the first time. And since that time, it's still happening. Even right now, it just happened. People then criticized Azikiwe for being unaccountable and for embezzlement. The Igbos in Lagos now said, anything against Azikiwe was a message against them. This was called the Lagos Press War of 1948. What you just did was what the Igbos did in 1948 by saying that when you speak against Azikiwe, you are speaking against the people. That's a very, very funny way to look at life. People were buying machetes to fight in the streets of Lagos. Why? Because Azikiwe was questioned. And politicians, they will insult themselves. They'll say whatever they want to say to themselves. No, everybody was insulting each other. But you said it was now for you. So what I'm saying right now, I'm telling you what Ojukwu did without even going deep into it, and you say I'm blaming Igbo people. Do you not understand that Ojukwu is not Igbo people? And that if you are really an Igbo person and you really listen, read all the books from your side. I don't mind. But please, I beg in the name of God, read books from other people. Because if you read Achebe's book, There Was a Country, and you read Madiebo's book on Nigerian Revolution, and you read, the only book that I think even comes close to anything is the book by Hilary Njoku, A Tragedy Without Heroes. Or you read Enyo Akman's book, Struggle with Secession. But when you are done, I beg, and Frederick Forsai's book, because it makes people happy in the Eastern region, that's fine. When you are done, I beg, read from other places. Bengbule, yes, Nigeria's 5 majors. Even that book, although he was trying to say it's not Igbo, but at least he was able to tell us the role that Oji and Okafor played. And that's why I tell you about people as well. I like not to assume that everybody from a region is lying. I know, but I won't lie. Just about every book I've read, I've seen that heavy tribal loyalty. Even when it was wrong, every single thing that was most things that were wrong, there's a way they will write about it. Maybe just, which is okay. Which is why you now have gaps to fill. To fill that gap, you have to read other people. I'm not against your bias, but please read. Please. Especially from the Southeast. If there's anything I really want for you, oh Lord, God says my heart, I want you to be free of this propaganda. You don't know how bad it is, oh. Until you read and until you see these things, you're like, You know there are books that you read that you curse your leaders. You have to hold yourself back and say, nah, that was a mistake they made. What makes this really bad is not that Ojukwu even did something, is that you guys think that it was right. And the crazy part is that you have never studied it. The only source you have is Radio Biafra. You have never, not once have you read anything about it. You have never read your own Igbo books. And that era of throwing up why we struck, go and read it. Please read that book before you recommend it. It's not very good for what you think it is. But please study this thing from different side. Please. The war was a terrible thing, but it should never have happened. And the person that should be punished for it is one, interestingly, who got state pardon. The North have always massacred Igbos, usually unprovoked, and we keep getting reasons to justify this. That's the problem. You think it is unprovoked. When did the North start killing Igbos? 1945. Why? Listen, I'm not saying you can justify any of these things. You cannot. If one person dies, you cannot justify it. A soul is one too many. Like a death is one too many. One person dying is one too many. You can't justify it. But if you don't understand it, you will repeat the same pattern every time. That's the problem. So what you are doing right now is to say they did it with unprovoked. What do you mean unprovoked? Let me give you some examples. 1945 was the first time, at least that I know of, that the Northerners attacked the Igbos. Do I think it was good? Of course not. Do I think they have a right to do so? Not really. Can we justify it? No. But do we understand why it happened? Yes. If I ask you now, you say it is unprovoked. It was not unprovoked. There was a statement made in Lagos by a lawyer who was in the Legislative Council at the time. His name is Onyema. C.D. Onyema, Charles Onyema. He made a statement in 1945 That statement was the reason for what happened in the North, which is why I tell you people that this is that you guys insult people on social media. When it will happen to people on the ground, you will not be there. What did Oyema say? He said, and I quote, and he said this in Lagos, not even in the East, he said it in Lagos. Everybody heard it. He said, the Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a matter of time. He said it. People heard it. People got angry. Does that justify it? No. There are things you don't say. In a place where there's, and by the way, in case people don't understand, this was 1 year after the, may God have mercy on us. This was just 1 year after the agreement that was made by leaders in Igbo State Union. They made a pact in 1944. A year later, Charles Oyema made that statement. People heard it. They started fighting. Yorùbá sọ pé ọ̀rọ̀ báwo máa sọ ọ̀rọ̀ kí nǹkan ló máa ń yọ obì lápò. Ọ̀rọ̀ náà lè yọ idà lápò. It depends on how you say it. Listen, it's not justifiable, but I understand why they would do what they did to you. If you slap me and I carry a club to hit your head, you may think about it and say, oh, that will not commensurate and all. That's just English. Your head is already swollen. Why just leave me alone and not slap me? It was tit for tat, but the tat was too big. That's why I say it's not justifiable. But I can tell you that you cannot be doing things and expect not to have consequences. Like, you can't just insult everybody and say, oh, or just declare certain things and say nobody should say anything. Somebody asks, which book can you find that thing? How is a speech commensurate to killing? You definitely don't understand the power of words. You don't understand what words can do. So it's not just words. Why people have defamation suits? It's not just words. When you defame a person, it's not just words. When Nnamdi Kanu was on his radio saying, burn down Lagos, was it not just words? It's just words. Nnamdi Kanu on radio, burn down the place, burn it down. Rwanda, was not just words. Thank you. The entire earth, from my faith, it was created by words. You know what the Bible says? It says the things that do appear were made of things that do not appear. By words, God himself created the heavens and the earth. Listen, words are powerful. Oh. If you say terrible things, they will beat the hell out of you. You say, I did not beat you. Nobody cares. Emotional damage. See, when you, do you know when you hit people, that's physical. Emotional damage, you can't see it, but sometimes it's worse. You know, when you insult a person to a point and the person just carry wood, knock your head, you say, no, just what I talk. The thing what you do to Ram, in his own head, that is the payment for what you did. Like what you said, you insulted him to the point where the pain he felt, as far as is concerned, the way to make you feel that pain, maybe no fit talk like you, maybe no get mouth, he go just hit you. Why do you think I try to curb myself? Because even when I know I'm saying the truth, I'm still trying to not get to the point where you think I'm attacking. It may feel like an attack, but it's not because I'm attacking you. It's an attack because it's the truth. So I know the truth is heavy, so I have to find a way to just, it's not because I know if you talk, all the things that you guys do in the comments, I will respond though. The point is that what Oyema said, if you think it's just words, let me tell you something. There's hardly any book. And this is to answer the person who asked that question. Where can you find it? You'll find it in the book by Graham Douglas, The Idea of Igbo Domination. You find it in Graham Douglas's book. You find it in My Command by Obasanjo. You find it in Just Before Dawn by Collier Motoshaw. Is there any book where I think the question is that you find it in Nigerian Civil War by John Desenjo. You find it in Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Kegri. The question you should be asking is that, is there any book you will even find it? You find it in Awo's biography. And then you now find, by the way, I think it's time to go to that biography now because we've been spending too much time on this news. You also find it in, I was going to say, I forgot now. There's hardly any book from that era that doesn't have that phrase. Now, by 1950, something else happened. Now, there was another crisis in 1953. Something else happened. Interestingly, what happened in 53 happened in Lagos, just like what happened in 45. The people who suffered for it were in the north. And to make it crazy, the Bible says that from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What Onyema said was not just something that he thought, that it just came to him. It was a product of an arrangement that the Igbo State Union made in 1944, the arrangement that they were referring to in 1964, and also referred to what Onyema said, and referred to what Okpara said has been too forward, and ensure that it was the reason they were able to do what they did in federal civil service between 1960 and 1964. It wasn't because they were, it wasn't, what there is merit. There was no merit in that thing. It wasn't because of merit. It was strategy. It was the reason they did what they did in January of 66. If you think January of 66 happened because some soldiers were angry, you don't get it. And I'm not going to talk more about it today because of time and because also, you know, it's not time yet. What happened in January of 66, that action, may God forgive everybody. May God forgive everybody that, you know, did Nigeria bad. May God forgive everybody. Because if you read some of these things, like I said that some things during when I was discussing the war, something I did not talk about, it was intentional. We'll wait a bit. So we're going to do our war for a while. Then we'll come back to that. And then we'll see how it goes. Then we can put out some information. Kekere. Not, we can't put everything out there. With this mindset, we will justify wife beaters, pedophilic people, and all vices. Go around be moving mad. If you have common sense, I already said you cannot justify what happened. If you move mad, people will beat the hell out of you. That person, we can arrest him and deal with him, but you'll be the one in the hospital. Why not have sense and move right? All right, this is not, if you think this is tribalism, you don't know what this means. This is just history. Just preach to help Nigerians at large. That's what I'm doing. What do you think I'm doing here? What do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to help Nigerians at large. How do you help people without the truth? Listen, just be thankful to God that we're able to share this thing as respectfully as we can. I'm not saying I'm doing my, this may not be the best, but it's my best. But God will help me to make it even better. If you, the way you're talking in the comment section, if you know 1/10 of what we have read, you'll be cursing everybody out. You would have cursed all of us out. I'll call us tribalists. But don't worry, you cannot know it because you don't like responsibility. All right.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Hope you've been having a great time. That was Dear Chimamanda. Here's what you didn't say about the Southeast crisis. We also call it the danger of Chimamanda's single story. We're trying to respond to a particular video that she had put out, and that's about that. Now we have some people in the comment section on. Someone says, Chioke Shedrack says, bro, I'm here. Oh, that's the guy from yesterday evening. What I'm hearing is painful. Hey, yeah. It's part of the process. It's not always comfortable, the truth. It's not always comfortable. And like I always say, especially because of people like you, these things are not being shared in order to cause pain or to denigrate an ethnic group. It's just the truth. And like I always say, the best I think we can do is to share it respectfully. And the reason it's maybe
hard to bear is because, for the most part, especially if you're from the Southeast, you've not been told these things. You've been told that everybody did something to you, you did nothing to anybody. And I know it can be painful, but again, this is just the surface. We've done a number of videos on this particular question, and you can find them on the YouTube channel, Busui Oris. Now, some of those things will sound unbelievable. You may even think I hate you, or that all the books I'm reading are just lies. But understand the fact that some of those books are from the Igbos. I read books written by the minorities in the Eastern region, by the Hausas or Northerners, by Yorubas, by Americans, and by the British. Did you call that? Nigeria has actually done the Igbo a huge favor by concealing some of these things. Not concealing by not saying it, but concealing by only writing it without discussing it. So these things are written, these things have been published for years. There are some of these books that were published in 68. I even referred to a book that was published in 1866. Right? These things are hidden in books, but they've not been discussed. And the Igbo should have just been happy with that, rather than insulting everybody and telling whether it's everybody's fault. That will now make us have to discuss the truth, not because we hate a group, but because it's important for us to uncover what really happened. All right, let's go to the next question. It says, two conditions to consider facts. Perhaps you can control your own actions, but you cannot control the other person's reactions. That's from Yemonite. I think that is probably a response to what I said about the fact that you can't hit somebody and then tell them how to retaliate. They might decide to shoot you. So it's important for us to be very careful, especially when it comes to words, just insulting everybody. People can, just like it happened in the North, words were said in Lagos and people got killed in the North. And Chimamanda says they did it because they were Christians. That's actually nonsense. Anyway, let's go on. Roboto says, frankly, Probusui, do you think this forced union can ever work? Nothing has ever changed. Do I think the union can work? Now, what I'm going to say, I'm not sure you're going to like it, but do I think Nigeria can work? Yes, I do. Do I think it can work the way it is? Absolutely not. If we stick to the status quo, it can never work. If we use our brains as human beings that God created, it can work. And the way to do it is to understand, appreciate the differences, and create structures that actually factor in those things. We have to have our idiosyncrasies, our uniqueness and our differences factored into the kind of structure we need to have as a nation. If we do that, we can work. If we don't do that, it will never work. Right? And that's just what I think. And I mean, history has taught us that much. Nigeria, the way it's structured, especially after the coup with the unitary nonsense that Ironsi and his people brought in. When I say his people, I mean, to be honest, it's mostly Igbos. No matter how generous and magnanimous I want to be with some of my comments, I can't change the past. It was mostly by the Igbos. It's just sad. And the reason was because if you want to understand why Ironsi did what he did, you have to go back to the speech that Azikiwe made when he was talking to what Azikiwe said when he was talking to the Sudan, when he said, let us forget our differences. At the core of unitary system is the thought or the thinking of forgetting people's differences in order to create a new race. Let us forget our differences. Let us be detribalized. Let us just become one. That is the thinking of a thief. It's not the thinking of a statesman. Because when you say forget your differences, you are forgetting because you know you have scarcity where you're from. I have abundance where I am from. I forget who I am. You come in and you take over those things. That is the reason Ojukwu did what he did in the 66. In the first half of 66, before the death of Ironsi, Ojukwu came up with this bright idea of saying, you know what, we're going to have this thing where we'll give everybody scholarships, and then whenever you're filling your forms, don't write your tribe. We just want you to, be Nigerian. And people thought it was a great idea. I looked at it and I felt like you have to be dumb to actually think that was a great idea, as a Yoruba person especially. two reasons. Number one, if I write my name Adebusui, do I have to tell you I'm Yoruba? You know, you can exclude me regardless of whether I write it doesn't matter whether I write my ethnicity or not. You see the name, you can tell where I'm from. That's number one. Number two, which is the real stuff, is actually the reason they discontinued that policy. Anybody knows the reason? The people who even explained the reason were the intellectuals from the Southeast, Igbo intellectuals. You know what they said? They said, we have removed the issue of tribalism in Nigeria, in our own part, by removing, by asking people not to write their tribe of origin in the forms. However, there has been no reciprocity from other parts of Nigeria. In other words, the real reason for that policy was for reciprocity. In other words, if I give your people something in my place, do the same thing for my people in your place. Now, here's where it gets crazy. In my place, in Igbo land, fewer Nigerians move to Igbo land, more Igbo people move out of Igbo land to other places, which means that if I reciprocate that policy, you will take over my space. And because people did not reciprocate, they then said, that means that Nigerians don't want unity. That's not unity, that's stealing. And it's the mindset that calls for unitary system. It's the mindset that calls for let's be one. That oneness is not unity. That's one. I mean, if for instance I say we are the same, and you have a problem with that, it means that your concept of sameness or of being at the same level of equity is dominance. I can't tell you that, oh, we are equal. Equality to you means you have to be at the top, even though you have no reason to be there and you have no capacity to even get there. But yeah, it is what it is. Let's read a few more things here. This copy said, you will not understand because the Southeast has nothing they owned and built. Well, that's a bit harsh. They built pyramids. They had some things. It's just that they had no structure to carry stuff. There was no structure. There was no civilization to carry stuff. I don't want to go into it because I'm always trying not to get into it, because there's no way you get into it and it will not sound as if you're insulting people, but it's just the truth. There was no... Whatever it is they built, it couldn't be sustained because there was nothing underneath it. There was no structure to bear it. But let's just move on. Where were we? So I'm reading from TikTok. If I see anything on YouTube, I'll read as well. Let me read from YouTube. Truth cannot set narcissists free. Olumide lost on me. Oh boy. How true. Very true. Frankie Fex is reading different book, journals, and articles. Calm down and learn. Kem Cake says Ogmon GBT. Kem. Even Babangida wrote a book that he doesn't like. You know what? I think this Babangida thing, maybe we should do it tomorrow. I think we should do that book tomorrow. Not the book, but that claim that Babangida said something. I hope I remember. I'll probably note it down somewhere, but I'd like us to discuss. Even Babangida said, and the person who is talking has never read Babangida's book, but maybe we should discuss that tomorrow. Flower Boy says, Elenio, so far I have noticed that he reads favorable parts of the books because I have read them. You have read nothing. There's no time you have actually spoken here that you sound like a person who has read anything more than invoices and receipts. Don't play with yourself. You have never sounded like somebody who has even taken time to read anything beyond receipts, apart from what you studied in school, which I'm not sure you passed. Lenny says, have you read Babangida's book? Okay, we'll do that one tomorrow. Oh, so the person who is talking about the book, someone says, have you read the book? He says, must I read the book? No, you can't. You have not read something, you don't want to read it, but you want to have an opinion on that thing. See how interesting people are. Alekon says they want other people's space, that's why they want the union by force. I agree. Nigeria will move forward when we get past this. Flower Boy, the only way to move forward is actually to get into this. Make no mistakes about sweeping the truth under the carpet is the reason Nigeria has not moved forward. And let nobody gaslight you, especially if you're Yoruba, that once we move forward from these things, then Nigeria is going to grow. Until we actually face these things and discuss it, we are not going anywhere. You will not stop having a general supply of people that can easily join IPOB. IPOB is not the first one. There was Masol before this one. There'll be others after it. I mean, there's one, the Briggs, or whatever they call themselves, BGIE. There will always be a constant supply of retards that will join such movements because nobody's really facing the real issue. This is not something to just sweep under the carpet and say, until we go up, get over this, we're going to grow. We are not growing at all until we discuss these things. And the reason these things have not been discussed is that people think that if we don't talk about it, then we are going to build a nation and have national unity. Well, we can't have national unity without talking about these things. What you think is destroying Nigeria is the only thing that can build it, which is acknowledging the past and building structures based on the lessons that you have learned from it. If you sweep it under the carpet, there's nothing to learn. Therefore, you are doomed to repeating the mistakes from generation to generation, which is why the way people are insulting folks on social media today, especially people from the Southeast, is exactly the way they did in 1966. The exact same thing. Nothing has been learned. Nothing has been learned. If you read some of those books, right? If you read Beckon to Serve, for instance, by Sheil Shagari, or you read Tragedy of Victory by Alabi Sama, or you even read Azikiwe's own book, The Origins of the Civil War, the pattern is the same. Insult, 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 supremacy, supremacy, supremacy. You are superior to everybody, but you are the victim of everybody. But then you insult everybody, then you have more power than everybody until people get enough. For instance, there's a video I saw today. I'm going to talk about it tomorrow. Of Odumeje talking rubbish, threatening Lagos. As much as I was saying Yoruba, threatening Yoruba people, and they're using Lagos as an example. If they catch that one now, they will start crying like bush babies and say they are marginalizing them. I'll play that video tomorrow. Those kind of words, those inciting statements that you guys make. And the funny thing is that you have no right to even complain about anything in this country. You are the ones that will create Nnamdi Kanu and bow down to him as Lord and Savior. You are the ones that will be threatening people, even what was the name of this group of clowns? Igbo Women Association in Aba, writing to threaten the governor of Lagos State about introducing Yoruba language in schools. You put mouth in things that you have no business. And once you now get the repercussions, it's being said, oh, they hate us, they imagine. Why do we do this? Don't worry, keep insulting in the comment section. Don't change, Joe. Don't change. Continue. Anyway, I think we're good. It says those books were written for the writer to feel good about their world's decision. So the thing about Frank effects, and I think this is the last thing I'm going to type, because if you type any other thing, you'll probably be blocked. But let me just say this to you. For a person who has no idea what books look like, here's my advice. Take some time to start from writer grammar and maybe do some ABC. Once you're done, the way to study history is to look at it from different perspectives, including the Igbo perspective, which is mostly lies and propaganda, and I'm going to say it. I've read a number, even when, and I do it because I'm like, you know what, you have to listen to this side as well. Most, not all, most of the books from the Southeast on the war are filled with lies. Not all, but most. Why? Because the propaganda has to be kept alive. And I got very, very interested in books from the Southeast after reading the one by Chinua Achebe, There Was a Country. That book is a load of crap. But that's not, I mean, it's not surprising. After all, it was a propagandist for Biafra. You guys like people that tell you nonsense as long as it makes you happy, even if it's not the truth. This is not the platform for that. God bless you. Shewa says, yes, from yesterday's reading, I noticed that Festus Okotiebo was siding with those that buy him in the house unknown to him. I didn't talk about it yesterday and it was intentional, but you caught it and I'm glad you did. And thank you for also highlighting that. But the reason Okotiebo did that was because, again, this is how people are. Okotiebo was not being a bad person. It was just being a party man. I didn't want to talk about it yesterday because it's going to take the vim out of what I was reading. Okotiebo was being a party man. And that's the dilemma, that's the problem or the mistake of every non-Igbo person in NCNC. They were being party men, including Yoruba ones among them. Kola Balogun, T.O.S. Benson, Akifo Sile. These people were trying to do, oh, we are all in the same party, not knowing that they are in a party with a people who have a plan to overrun the country, using the party as a vehicle. But at the at the destination, the head of the country must be Igbo. They wrote it the perpetual rule of the federation. And that's why I laugh when I see Yoruba people on social media being funny. When you're trying to, you are philosophizing, right? You're speaking English. You're trying to explain the logic behind something. Folks who have plans don't care about your logic. For instance, what's the logic in the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives saying that the Lagos State government should not demolish buildings that were built illegally? It shouldn't demolish, it should just regularize them. In other words, even if the buildings will affect every other thing in the state, you can't pull it down because it's built by my own people. Just regularize those things. What's the logic? You are the one looking for logic. In other words, we can do things that can affect the that can affect the collective, as long as it makes certain people happy. For instance, some people said they were taking Unilag and OAU. They took them to court because 4 or 5 kids had issues with whatever it is that they were doing. So the entire school should be shut down until those people. I'm not saying they should not admit those ones, or if they are qualified, but to shut everything down because, in other words, the collective can go to blazes as long as I am taken care of. But I'm not selfish, and I'm not a tribalist, and if you're against me, you are the bigot. Is there any logic in that statement? Of course there is none. That's because propaganda does not require logic. But Okotiebo, yeah, he was being a party man supporting NCNC, trying to take over the Western region, not knowing that in a bid to take over Western region, they were going to kill himself, and they killed him. They killed him. They took over the Western region. They started as a party intrigues in 62, got worse in 65. He was unalived in 66 with the same people he was supporting. So if you are doing all this, we are doing party, we are all one Nigeria, the person you are supporting, does he have the same frame of reference as you? For instance, there are Yoruba people who are saying, who were saying the other day that, oh, don't speak against Uzo, are we not one Nigeria? As soon as she released a statement about Yoruba stuff on TVC, they were like, wait oh, how can she say that? How can she? I was like, wait, you didn't expect this? A lot of them are say backtracking, like, oh no, we can't do this. I'm like, that's the thing. While you're speaking English, the person is going on with his own agenda, but you are being idealistic. Oh, this is the ideal world, as though you live in Jupiter. This is the ideal world, or utopia, whichever one you want to pick. This is the ideal world. This is how it should be. It is how it should be when you are working with people you should be working with. You don't know where people are coming from. And until I know where you are coming from, I'm going to treat you like the generality of people from your side, based on the ideology, prevailing ideology in your region. Until you show that you're an exception, then if you are the exception, no problem. But generally, it's like expecting, if you say Yoruba person, most likely, if he's greeting an adult or an elderly person, it will most likely curtsy, prostrate, or kneel or something. That's the rule. The exception is a man who is just disrespectful. They also exist, but that's an exception. The same way I expect every Yoruba person to be respectful is the same way I expect Igbo people to love propaganda and to act based on it. But that does not mean there are no exceptions. There are, and I've met exceptions, and it's a blessing to also meet them. All right. What else? If I say ask your father, this one is something else. He said they fire him even though he's from their party. Well, he's not from their ethnicity. No politician was killed in 66 from the south, from the eastern region. You know, I video a couple of days ago. It was a video where the person said in 66 January, when the coup was executed, that the premier of the eastern region was out of the country. Of course, the person is Igbo. There's no book on earth written by a sensible human being that will make that claim. The worst you get is that Macarius was visiting, and that's why he was not killed. And even that one was a lie. There was no plan to do anything in the eastern region. There was no plan to do anything in the midwestern region. Why? Because the premiers of those two regions were Igbos. No single politician, and let me tell you something, if you are looking for corrupt politicians, you can't say look at this one, not look at that one. They are everywhere, or they were everywhere, just like they are everywhere. Is it the one that stole money meant for his townspeople to go to school in the US that was not corrupt? Or the one that was frying his family members everywhere that was not corrupt? Or the one that appropriated federal land? But no, they're not corrupt because they were Igbo. But the rest of us are the bigots. You guys are, it is well with you. Okay. A few more things before we close the session today. It says demolish it. Someone says, no, now only Igbo them see blame. No, now only Igbo they no kill. If you really understand Nigeria's history, the Igbos have lost the right to make some of the claims that you guys make. You have lost it completely. You have no basis for it because you have been consistent about tribalism, nepotism, and clannish mindset historically. In other words, if you're going to talk about this thing, just talk about it as objectively as you can. Don't try to even act like you have anything to say that makes you better than anyone, because you are worse. And I'm talking to you, Frankie Fex. There's no moral pedestal to climb. There's nothing that you can hold over any other group in Nigeria. And I'm not saying that every other group in Nigeria is perfect, you are terrible. That's not the point. It's just that you as a group, you have no pedestal to climb to look down on people. There's no castle you can build in the air because you have no air to build it in. You got to calm down. You know what? Be like say you don't know your history. We're going to teach you small. Me, I'm just going to do the best I can do is just to be respectful about it. Not because of you, because you don't deserve it, but because of me. I'm not going to become stupid because you are exhibiting what you were raised with, which is stupidity, to be clear. All right. May God bless you in your... Did they told you they want a castle? Please buy Brighter Grammar. It's going to help you. Frankie Fex, buy Brighter Grammar. I used it in primary school. I don't know if they still publish it, but you're going to need it. All right? Because of all the problems you have, speaking bad English should not be one of the, please don't add that one, I beg. May God bless you. You see, grammar is not my language. That's what we're saying. Every language has grammar. Even Yoruba has grammar, but you wouldn't understand because you're busy selling spare parts. All right, Lawatunde says, Olumide is right. People say, you can't wake the one pretending to sleep no matter how hard you try. That's true. Lawatunde ends by saying their leaders benefit from these deceitful acts. They gain politically by lies and propaganda. I agree. I mean, how else or why else would a sitting senator, two of them, Abaribe and Ume, and the deputy speaker of Nigeria's House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, and the other one who is trying to become president but will never be, that's Peter Obi, have this rhetoric that has no, like, as a human being, forget ethnicity, forget anything, just forget say ethnicity day for Nigeria. Say all of us are even one. You do something way no good, they tell you say make you come fix them. You beat the government officials, they tell you say make you come fix them. You shut the door, tell them say that place na sovereign space because na federal land for Lagos, which apparently is stupid. You talk all those ones, eventually the government can't come fix the thing, fixing the bad thing where your people do. You can't say make the government just make them not do and say that they victimize Igbo. Are you sure you want to create? You can understand why you cannot make progress in your region, because you hate order. There's no growth without order. There's no growth without structure. And when they were pulling down buildings at Oworonshoki last month, majority of the owners of those buildings were Yoruba. They are Yoruba. Did you hear anybody say they pulled down those buildings because they were Yoruba? Why is it that you get to just behave anyhow, but nobody can question you because you are Igbo? Are you dumb? The Yoruba people who did something wrong, they did it, it was wrong, and they were dealt with. The best they could do is to ask the government to maybe compensation for those who have C of O and things like that. Not to be going everywhere blackmailing the nation, blackmailing the governor, blackmailing the states, and you don't have to be here. Say, if you don't take care of local investors, there will be no foreign investors. Who are the investors? Can build anywhere, that makes you investor. By the way, this generation is even different. You bring it, you collect, until we create a structure that actually allows you to know your boundaries, because you've got to know your boundaries. You can't be the only one just exasperating everybody because you are in one Nigeria. I'm not going to say that to your elders. Say that to your elders, because you don't seem to have sensible ones. The boundaries are needed, I beg. It should be stated clearly so it is known. So, Flower, that's it. That's where the problem is. Every civilized people, every cultured people don't have to be told. They just know. And the assumption in Nigeria's constitution and the way we run our state is we have this assumption that everybody is sane and that every culture is developed. Clearly, some cultures in Nigeria, particularly your culture, is not developed. There are things that are not said. But clearly, the framers of Nigeria's constitution or whatever they did, they just did it based on the fact that there's an assumption that everybody will understand if they get to places, this is how they behave. Apparently, that's not going to work. How come in the entire country, only one group doesn't know the meaning of, you know what, in Yoruba, we have like you can actually talk to your kid with your eyes. You don't have to speak. If your child tells you, but you didn't say it, that means you were a bad parent. You didn't raise that child properly. Imagine I'm talking to my child, for instance, in a room. I'm across the room, and I'm looking at him a certain way. Of course, he gets the message. If he doesn't, that means I failed. So maybe your elders failed in raising you guys, because I don't know how everywhere you go is like MTN. Is in Kenya, is in Ghana, is in Vietnam, is in Malaysia, is in South Africa, Mozambique, everywhere. Everybody's complaining about one group. China now. Yeah, so maybe they're going to have to rewrite the constitution and spell everything out, you know. Maybe they shouldn't write ABC, start with alphabets, so that I can break it down words and phrases. Develop your culture and leave others. Are you a colonizer? I think you should take that advice. Igbo is very old. It is not right to say our culture is not developed, but I get that helps your take. No. Seriously, your culture is not developed. Sorry about that. I'm gonna have to take this thing out. I think TikTok is just doing the most these days. But I hope you can hear me now. I'll have to bring out the other account. Anyway, just evolve, man. Just evolve, right? And stop saying you are old. Number one, we know when the group was put together, the identity was created less than 200 years ago. So Farabale, the old is this person saying that they're going to create something and they're going to name it after ancient Igbo men. And I was waiting for the names of the Igbo men. He was mentioning Mbono Jike and Azikiwe. That's ancient. Okay. When you are done deceiving yourselves, you'll be fine. By the way, you know what? There's no problem deceiving yourself. You have every right to deceive yourself. It's not my business. But you don't have any right to use your deception to hurt me. That's all. All right, someone wants to come up. I think it's Vodi. We'll have him, and then we'll close the session for today. We'll be again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. This one says Yoruba was created in the 19th century. Exactly. That's why you don't have your name here. I'm very sure your parents are very proud of your anonymity. The assumption that we are the same is the reason we are not growing. We are not the same. Politically, you are actually backward. There's something you have going for you, Flower Boy. What you have going for, and by the way, in case you're on YouTube, I'm responding to someone in the comment section. There's on TikTok. There's something you have going for you, which is the fact that your system was quite democratic, right? Everybody had a say, which makes sense, which is beautiful, right? But the problem is that the way it was structured, it wasn't built on anything. There's nothing complex about it. In other words, it was built for small groups. So the first time you saw something huge, where you have this complex statecraft and political organization, was in Nigeria. I'm saying the very first time the majority of the Igbo race saw it. I mean, you have pockets like in Onitsha who understand what monarchy was like, where you have kings and you have chiefs and you have this and you have that. It's a bit difficult. And so when you got it, the first thing you thought about was, how do we create a structure where all this country called Nigeria, everyone in this country becomes one group, and we have to dominate and become the Oga. Zeke talked about that thing since the 1950s, and he said it until they accomplished it in 66. The question you should be asking yourself is this: if you came up with an idea that led to the death of many and has put Nigeria in where Nigeria is right now, shouldn't you think about learning how to do things rather than shouting that you know what you're doing, because you clearly don't? Vodi, yeah, let me bring you up. Hello, Vodi, please go on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good afternoon.
Oh, so good afternoon. I mean, nice job. I actually didn't know that you now have like a session that you don't appear. Maybe it's been a while.
It's been a while then. Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right. So something got me thinking yesterday, right? I was online and I was listening to, I don't know what maybe yesterday was like a commemoration of the Asaba massacre, right? And I was hearing all sorts of story. So I think I've sent a message to you on this platform that you can recommend books that you can read regarding the Asaba massacre, because there is this confusion as to who initiated the massacre. Was it the Ojukwu boys or the Nigerian army, basically? So I mean, if you have books and references, so that to clarify that for me and some of my siblings.
Oh, okay. Let's do that tomorrow, but I could just give you like a very short stuff. So the thing is, Asaba massacre happened after the invasion of the Midwest by Ojukwu's boys. And this is what I think. Again, we'll get to the maybe tomorrow. Maybe during the news we can quickly talk about it. But here's the point. The massacre cannot be justified. It's not justifiable. People died, and it was terrible, right? Under the command of Murtala Mohammed, it was a very terrible engagement. People died. However, this is what I think. The Biafra boys had done crazy things since they got there in August, right? Killing people, especially Northerners, in Benin, in Wari, in Hugeli, in Asaba, taking over vehicles belonging to expatriates, moving provisions from the Midwest to Enugu. One second, please. All right. Moving items from that place to Enugu, raping, pillaging the entire place, right? Excuse me, I'm actually sneezing. Excuse me. Building concentration camps in Benin, doing the most. Now, by the time the Nigerian guys arrived, those ones, they people, that's Biafran boys. By the time the Nigerian guys came, those ones, that's one. Number two, there are also reports of sabotage. For instance, people in some cases were reported to be the informants, Biafran informants, where the Nigerian army would work into ambush. Because of course they were listening to the locals who were actually Biafran informants. I mean, this thing is a bit complex. They had the reason to do what they did, but I don't think it's justifiable. And if the Asagba of Asaba is asking or demanding for an apology, I think he has the right to be honest, because it was a very terrible thing. And we can go to the details and say, this is what they did, this is what they did. But even at that, it was terrible. And I remember I mentioned it yesterday, but also that does not in any way mean that the Southeast has any right under heaven to demand apology from anybody. As a matter of fact, till Jesus comes, the Southeast owes Nigeria daily apologies for the war, for the coup, and those two things at least. But people died in the Southeast, yes. And it is condemnable, and it is a sad situation, and I really wish nobody died. However, the people responsible for that, they did not apologize. Some of them were even pardoned by Nigeria. And because they were pardoned, their children insult the entire country and say, after all, now you force us, make we come back. Forgetting the fact that in a bid to leave, they were literally taking other people's lands. For instance, what on earth was an Enugu man doing in Okene? What was he doing in Benue? What was he doing in Benin? What was he doing at Ore? Why was he in Lagos, bombing Lagos? And nobody should tell me it was people of federal capital. When they were moving to go through, when they were moving from Onitsha going to Ibadan on their way to Lagos, they were not going to Lagos because Lagos was the capital. Look at the letter Ojukwu wrote to Victor Banjo. You find that letter in a book called A Break in the Silence by F. Adeton Ogusheye. I think I've read it here before. And if you have not read it before, you can find it I think it's also on our YouTube channel, the letter Ojukwu wrote to, you can use the keywords Ojukwu and Victor Banjo, you find it. I read it there. It was a complete takeover of the South and then much later of the North. There's no way you have that kind of plan and you did what you did and you're expecting. Meanwhile, man, anyway, let's just stick to Asaba. The Asaba massacre was terrible. We know the reasons, but I still think that it makes sense if their own king asks for an apology, because if that was going to give them closure, then it makes sense. For the Southeast, if they've not found closure since all these days, then they need to actually have
someone actually sit down and tell them what really happened, because I don't think the majority of people from the Southeast knew what happened. But Asaba is not the same thing as Biafra. All right.
All right, Prof.
Thank you, sir. But we'll do all of those things tomorrow. Thank you.
If you have references and books, I mean,
You can read the Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. And you can read Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green. Those two books mention the things that happen. You know what? I'm going to. It's just if I knew that, because we're running a series right now. Okay. Maybe tomorrow we could just read it, because when it comes to things like this, I think it's better to read those things. You know why? Because when I read them, then they lie. They say they lie. So imagine me saying it without having to say it's from here. It's from here. It's going to be very difficult for people to believe. So maybe we'll read from St. John tomorrow. But if you look at that, if you find that book, The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John, you will see the bit about Asaba there. And then also the one by H.M. Green. But I'll maybe just read a few of those things tomorrow before we get into the topic proper, if that helps.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Frankie Feck says the Civil War don't have proper history. Every writer is writing their opinion. No, they should be writing your opinion. See, please, before you say that the Civil War has no history, have you read any book? Let's not be doing this thing. Like it makes us. How can you say it has no history? There's hardly anything in Nigerian history that's been written about more than the Civil War. Hardly anything else. And let me also say this: when you say they are writing their opinions, so there's no way a writer would not write his opinion. E.g., Frederick Forsyth, everything he wrote in his books, he wrote Emeka, and then he did the other one. What's that one? The Biafra story. Now propaganda machine in they give us. But we still read the book. Why? Because it's someone's perspective. Before I read the book, I knew that Forsyth was a Biafran propagandist, yet I read the book. Before I read Achepe's book, I knew he was a propagandist, yet I read the book. Why? Because the perspective also matters. You might find something there, but you have never read anything. You have never read one from your own propagandist, let alone, I'm never mentioning anybody outside Igbo land. If you have not read these things, what audacity, what right do you have to say the history of the war has not been written when you have not read anything that was written about it? That's quite lazy, isn't it? Just read from different, and since God has given you brains and you have wisdom and you went to school, at some point in your research, you will find the truth. Read, is his opinion, at least he was there. I wasn't. You went. Even if he's lying, let me read what he's saying. By the time I read, I can find the holes. For instance, I didn't even have to read another book to see the holes inside Achebe's book. Inside Achebe's book, everybody in Nigeria was a demon. The Igbos were the only victim, and they never did anything. They were the saints of Christ. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. They never did anything wrong. As I was reading, I knew he was lying. But at least I want to know what he thought about what happened. And to be fair, although I think the book is a load of crap, it is not like there's nothing good inside that book. There's some information you will not find in any other book, but in his book. Because, listen, even if you are lying, there's a saying, a broken clock is right twice a day. Even if the book is propaganda, there will be something there. For instance, if you read Mein Kampf, where is that book? If you read Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, it's not like I'm going to be celebrating what Hitler said, but it helps you. When I read the book, it helps me understand how his brain worked as a young man when he got into power. At least I don't have to justify what he's doing, but at least I can understand his evolution as a person. But you never ever read Achebe. So let me recommend some books for you that are Igbo books. Should I? It says they all wrote to defend their decisions and why they did what they did, and that is not history. What do you think history is, Frankie Fex? Let me tell you something. I don't think it's going to help you, by the way, but I mean, just might help somebody else, because I was going to recommend Igbo books to you, because you will not read a book by a white person if it's not Frederick Forsyth, and I know you will not read a book by the Northerner, because they have to pander towards you. But here's the point, right? If a person writes his opinion and calls it history, he may be wrong. He may be wrong, but it should still be heard. Your unwillingness to listen to that person shows that something is fishy, especially since you were not there yourself. I can read certain books now and say, even though that man was there, he's talking nonsense. I'm not saying that because I was there. I'm saying that because I have read other people who were there. And I've seen congruence from different places, and I've seen a particular style from the Southeast. That's where I know, okay, when they're talking like this is where they're going. Guess what? You even see it in Chimamanda's works today. You guys have been conditioned a certain way. And that conditioning did not happen by God. It wasn't done by God. It was done by your intellectuals, especially in the 60s. They started doing it in the 40s, but they farabaled to do it in the 60s, and they succeeded. But how would I know they did it if I didn't read the works that your people wrote, if I didn't see that thread? Don't be proud. You are too ignorant to be proud, Frankie. Even the wise, even the knowledgeable person should not be proud, let alone you. You are too ignorant to. Are you going to collect money for your pride? You don't know anything. And I say that, and I don't like to say things like that, but sincerely, you don't know Jack. Because anybody who knows a little thing, even if it's just something small, you would appreciate the work that it took for a person to even write lies. But you don't know Jack. Someone says, so tomorrow Chimamanda's books will become history. Yes, now she has a right to her opinion, but I have a right to also demolish her argument. So in an ideal world, what you want to write is the truth. But in the real world, what you're going to see will be truth mixed with perspectives. But the one who is writing it, for whatever reason, e.g., it could be for, what's this word? Oh, I'm looking for a word. I'll explain it. Maybe I'll find the word while I'm explaining. Achebe worked as a propagandist in Biafra. He was one of the people pushing lies about Nigeria and about every other group in Nigeria. When he was writing his final book, he was staying true to a brand. Therefore, he could not even tell the truth. And then he wrote that book. When I opened that book to read it, I saw some truth in it. Listen, you cannot write propaganda without truth. You cannot push propaganda without a modicum of truth. You need truth covered and coated with a lot of lies. Or let me put it this way, you need the truth to coat the lies for it to be believable. Parts of it have to be true for people to believe it. The problem is that will people be able to discern, to know the difference between the truth and the lies? And that's where learning from others now help you. And sometimes it's not even learning about the war. It could be learning about the place. For instance, the other day we were talking about the issue of Kwashoko. If you read about just the history of Igbo land, forget the war. You can do a study on nutrition, on agriculture in the eastern region from 1952 to 1966, before the war. This one has nothing to do with the war. It's just people writing agric. If you read research works that that were put out by people, who are trying to do whatever they were doing in terms of agriculture in the eastern region, it helps you understand why you would have food scarcity during the war. And one of the things you're going to discover if you study agriculture and what they did, especially by Okpara, what you will notice is the fact that the southeast, present-day Igbo land, did not have enough land to cultivate anything. And if you think, oh,
let's go, we can even go back a bit. For instance, I referred to a book earlier that was published in 1866 that talks about agriculture in the southeast. You can build on that and have information about what that place is. So by the time you are reading about Kwashoko, which was a terrible thing, by the way, you're able to properly situate it, knowing that, okay, this place has always had problems with food, especially protein-rich food. Right? And then you now know, okay, these people, even during the First Republic, they were depending on Ogoja for meat. They were depending on rivers for fish. They were depending on Ogoja for food. The best part of Guinea farmlands in Igbo land was towards the Abakaliki area. They were depending on those places. In other words, the heartland of Igbo, there was no food like that, and there was definitely no protein. What does that do? Does that make you now say Igbo people are bad? No, it makes you understand that there is no way on earth without a plan during that war that the people will not have Kwashoko. And Ojukwu had no such plans to feed his own people. He had no feeding plan. Therefore, you begin to see how it would be stupid to blame Nigeria for blocking. Why? Because if you are fighting me and I block you, I can block you. If I'm fighting you and you're expecting me to feed you, you must be dumb. Like, how? Why? You must create a plan that will feed your people. You want to fight me. How do you expect me to be feeding you? Oh, it's humanitarian. Okay, so let's talk humanitarian. When Nigeria was feeding those people because, of course, altruism of Papa, how come the food was going to the soldiers and not the people? That's one. Number two, the blockade from Nigeria, of course, it was wrong. But guess what? War is not moral. That's why they begged him not to fight. But he said he wanted to fight because he was looking for something. There's a book. It was written by one civil servant that worked in the Eastern region in the early 60s. It was on Ojuku's side. One day I'm going to read that book. I'm looking up to see if I can find it. Shoot, what's the title of that book? No, let me know. I don't want to stand up. If I had this thing, I would have brought it out. I'm actually standing. Under Three Masters. Is it? One of these is here. I think it's the one that was written by an Igbo man. I want to talk about Igbo books so that I don't. Yeah, that's it. Under Three Masters, Memoirs of an African Administrator, Jerome Udoji. If you read about like what the civil service was like at the time, you have to piece information together. That's what I'm trying to tell you. People, and I'm working on something. Don't worry, when I publish the book, maybe it will help you, because again, you have to piece things from different people. I'm opening the book now, but I'm tempted. I'm trying to resist the temptation to read. Should I resist, or I should just read? Let me read something from that book. Again, this is Jerome Udoji. 1 second. This might help. So this man worked with the colonial administration and then worked in eastern Nigeria and worked under, what's it called? This gentleman. Was it gentle? I don't know. Ojukwu. I'll read the short part of it, then maybe some other day we'll talk about this. The last 8 months of my 20 years in the civil service were under Colonel Ojukwu, military governor of Eastern Nigeria. It was a trying and painful period. The irony of it was that it was under someone whom everyone, including his father, Sir Odumegwu Ojukwu, expected would treat me fairly and courteously, if not with respect. Not only was I a long-time friend of his father, but we hail from neighboring towns in the same local government area. Furthermore, I was already a permanent secretary when he came into the administrative service, and he used to come to my house anytime he was in Enugu from Udi, his posting. In fact, he met his first wife, former Miss Elizabeth Okafor, a nursing sister, at my house. My first surprise was his condescending attitude of talking down to me in an inspector general sort of language. Now I'm going to stop there. It's long. I would have loved to read to you what his father said. Now, he says here, my first surprise was his condescending attitude of talking down to me in an inspector general sort of language.
On more than 2 occasions since he became governor, his father remarked that he did not see why I served Zeke and Okpara and could not serve his son. Each time he made the comment, I assured him that I would give my best to his son, thinking that he was suspecting that I might decide to leave the service. It was later, when events began to unfold themselves, that I knew that Sir Odumegwu was referring to the disagreement between him and his son over my retention in the service. Now, I'll have a session on this book sometime, but here's the point I'm trying to make. If you pick that information about his condescension to his father's friend who was in the civil service just because he became military governor, the man had been in civil service for 20 years. What this means essentially is that he had been in civil service since the 1940s, right? Ojukwu was a Peking, okay? Becomes Oga and then acts like that. You put that together with what you see in the book by Ken Saro-Wiwa, On a Darkling Plain, where Ojukwu referred to Zeke as an old goat. Then you begin to build up the image of Ojukwu based on those two things. Then you read what Anthony Naro said about him. So you have taken from the southeast, the Igbos, you've taken from the south, Saro-Wiwa, you've taken from Edo, that's Enaro. You keep doing that until you're not able to rebuild that stuff to you. So you rebuild it by studying, and that's why we're always doing this, and we're all studying together. So even if you have not read those books, maybe you are busy, you're working, and I'm talking to everybody now, you have things to do, you're not able to get the books and all of that. My job, apparently, this time, is to bring those materials, read it all, so that we can all, have understanding of what has happened. But until we do that, let's not be prideful in our ignorance by saying that they're just talking. Because you saying they are talking does not make you wiser than them. Even if they are the most stupid people, they were there and you went. If you will now study those things, then you can tell where they are wrong, and then you can now say, I don't believe this one, I believe this one. But that's only because you have studied it, not because you are just being prideful based on ignorance. All right. I'm actually tempted to read that book. That book is very, very interesting, but I don't want to stay here beyond, the next few minutes. But I want to thank everybody who has been part of today's session. There are still some people in the comment section. You are responding to user. User doesn't have a name now. That's the reason I left him until I'm tired, and I will just mute him. He says, why do you envy Igbo, sir? Answer and be truthful. I don't have to answer you, to be honest. But since I read your question, I don't envy you. There's absolutely nothing in you to envy. And this is me under God. There's absolutely nothing that I think is deserving of being envied. Absolutely. So no, I don't envy you. I hope I answered your question. But there are things that one could learn from you. But nothing to envy. Thank you very much for your understanding. Flower says, why are you, is this how you spell Yoruba now? Okay. Why are Yaribas liars and backstabbers? What manner of evil? Okay, I don't know who Yaribas are, so I can't answer. Yeah. I'll just leave you alone. So again, when you guys use these things, I hope you know that it makes you look very dumb, especially since it's not rooted in history. But thank you. So, user, let me just spend a few seconds on. I like all your question, but it doesn't make sense. I don't know why I like senseless question. Maybe because I can find sense in it. And the sense there is this: the rhetoric of people hate us and people are envious of us is a retarded rhetoric, and it's tired. Believe it or not, while the video was playing, while we were listening, I saw something that I was trying to check just briefly, because I don't want to be distracted from this video apparently. So briefly, I saw that clip from Odumeje, and he used the exact same word. He said because they were jealousy and they were envious. Say your people were jealousy. They were jealous of the Igbos, they were envious of the Igbos. The exact thing he said in Onitsha is what you just said on TikTok. And believe it or not, it was what Ojukwu said in 1967. I don't think you guys actually appreciate your predicament. That an entire people think a certain way because a person who actually hated his people taught his people to think that way about others. You don't know how bad this is. That you literally worship your villain. So no, nobody envy. Well, maybe people envy you, Sha, but I see nothing, absolutely nothing. I mean, I can learn from everybody, and I've learned from my Igbo friends, because I mean, everybody has something to bring to the table. But that envy bit, you're not all that. Don't play with yourself. All right. Thank you. Njadi Ogun says the story of the war should be told as it is from the beginning to the end. Igbo lost the war, simple. There's a video coming out later today. It's already on TikTok, by the way. I was uploading it while we were listening earlier. Let me find the title. The title is Showore is Wrong. Nigeria owes no apology to the Igbos. That video will be on YouTube in the next hour or so. Please enjoy the video. It'll be out later. Showore is wrong. Nigeria owes no apology to the Igbos. Again, I don't do these things to demonize a group, but if you have been made to believe lies for a long time, truth looks like an attack. So what you are seeing is not an attack, is the truth. And the reason you think it's an attack is because you were fed and raised with lies. But don't blame your parents, because you're an adult now. You can choose the truth. So let's learn together. Let's heal for those who need healing, and let's stop blackmailing people with wounds that we've chosen not to find, healing for. May God bless you. And God bless Nigeria. God bless Igbo people. God bless Yoruba, Ibibio, Hausa, Tiv, Birom, Idoma, Ibibio, Angas, Efik. We are plenty. But God bless everybody. All right. And may we have the kind of nation that we deserve. And may we be the ones that will create the solutions that we've always sought. And may those who hate Nigeria, may God touch their hearts. And if they choose not to change, pardon. Anyway, we're going to close the session today. We'll be here again tomorrow at 1 p.m. if time West African time. We're going to continue the series. Awolowo and Akintola, the battle for the West, part 3 will be tomorrow. But before we get into it, like I promised, please vote. If you come early, please remind me. You know what? I should write these things down. You said something about the massacre. Sorry, guys, I need to write it down so I don't forget. The massacre, Asaba massacre, and Asaba massacre, and Johnny in Service. Okay, yeah, that's the title of the book. Johnny in Service by IBB. There's a claim that a lot of people say IBB said. So maybe we'll do those things tomorrow. If not, we'll do the one we can do tomorrow, because I want to make sure that we actually get to the clash between Awo and Akintola. We'll be reading from a number of books tomorrow. Adventures in Power Book 2 by Awo, The Travels of Democracy and the Rule of Law. I'll be reading S. Aduke Akintola is Life and Times by Akinjide Shundokun. I'll be reading a biography and postscript, Samuel Aduke Akintola and the Eyes of History by Honorable Femi Kende. Maybe even read Match Through Prison. I mean, there are many things to learn. Let's just keep coming and also keep supporting what we do. If you like to support what we're doing, please reach out. You can reach me on every platform, actually: Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Where again? Telegram, Facebook, Instagram at Busui Ori. So please just, and if you send me one message to Instagram, no, don't, just Telegram, please. Telegram or Facebook. I see those ones faster than the other platforms. But thank you very much for being here. May God bless you. May God keep you. May God increase you. May God give you wisdom. May God give you a heart to appreciate the truth. And may God help us to be humble even when the truth is not palatable. And may God give us the strength to do better than our forebears, so that we don't waste our time repeating their errors, so that we don't pass terrible inheritance to our children. May God help us. May God help Nigeria. God bless Nigeria. In Jesus' name, we're going to have the anthems now. So normally we play the Nigerian anthem and then the Yoruba anthem. For those of us on YouTube, we're going to have to let you go because of copyright stuff. West African time. Do have a lovely, lovely evening. God bless you. All right, Awatawani, Bibi Ẹkáàbọ, Orin Àkọ́jáde, Orin hymn number Nigerian anthem.